Hey guys, so this week's events with Zohran Mamdani winning the Democratic nomination for mayor of New York City made me think of one event probably like 34 years ago that happened in the Crown Heights area of Brooklyn, which might have been a signpost for, God forbid, what may come to us, may come to the city of New York. Even though I don't live in New York, but I consider myself a New Yorker. It was the summer of 1991, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of the few places he would go to when he wasn't at 770 Eastern Parkway, was the grave of his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, and also the grave of his wife, Chaim Mushka. One of those days, a convoy set out to go to Queens. It was his car, the car that he was in, and there was another car. That other car, I'm gonna spare you guys the details, but basically that other car accidentally ended up hitting a 7-year-old Guyanese child, the son of immigrants from Guyana. And long story short, the child died, and then race riots ensued, which were inflamed by none other than Al Sharpton. And one of the things that happened in these race riots was basically somebody yelled out, "Let's get a Jew. Let's go get a Jew." And a young Trinidadian man, 16-year-old, whose his parents had immigrated to the United States from Trinidad, went and stabbed multiple times a Lubavitcher Hasid by the name of Yankel Rosenbaum, who was actually here from Melbourne, Australia, which is a very strong Chabad community there. And he was learning by the Rebbe. He was learning at 770, if I'm not mistaken. And Yankel Rosenbaum died of his wounds. In the ensuing trial, basically, from what I understand, the jury was majority of a certain persuasion. They, Lemrick Nelson, his name was, the man who did the stabbing, was convicted of his crime, but because of certain circumstances, because the defense managed to convince, I guess, the court that Lemrick Nelson was intoxicated, that he was remorseful, that this and that, but there was no intent to murder anybody. It was a young man doing something stupid. He basically got only 10 years instead of, a lengthy sentence. By the way, the trial happened obviously when he was a minor, right? So, and then there's a whole thing. He was retried already as an adult a few years later. He already had served time. And by the time he was retried, he had already served, I believe, 8 years or 8.5 years of the 10 years that was, then given to him in 2000 and whatever, 2 or 3, and that's it. He was out of jail by 2003 or 2004. He was out of jail. And so, guys, at the time, Mayor Dinkins, I mentioned this in another video, Mayor Dinkins did not lift a finger to do anything during the riots in general. When asked about this case, he said, the justice system, basically he said it worked properly, and the right verdict was given, was brought down. On top of that, he was saying the entire time that there's some kind of an outlet for black rage. He basically justified everything that was going on, the riots and everything like that. And it took for the Lubavitch Rebbe to meet Mayor Dinkins and tell him, listen, we can't have this anymore. The city needs unity. And eventually, guys, because of all the riots, because of everything that happened, New Yorkers elected Mayor Giuliani. And in my humble opinion, New York had its best run during Giuliani's years as mayor. We're talking about 1993, I believe, until 2001, which culminated in 9/11, and he became known as America's mayor. That's a different story. So, guys, but I will tell you, during the tenure of Mayor Dinkins, New York, it was thought that New York was back on the rise after Mayor Koch was the mayor for a few years, I guess 8 years. He was the mayor of the 80s. Even though, by the way, Trump did not have such a good relationship with him, that's a different story. But guys, New York under Dinkins had a rise in crime. He created one of the biggest welfare classes New York has ever seen, had ever seen. And honestly, guys, my biggest concern is that if this Mamdani guy gets elected, we're not going to see only one Lemrick Nelson and Yankel Rosenbaum incident. We may see many of them, or many attempts. And I don't know if you know this, guys. That in that trial, the jury, it was supposedly that there was a party that was held by the defense attorneys where the members of the jury showed up and they were hugging and congratulating Lemrick Nelson. They were all hugging and congratulating each other, folks. So there could be a situation where basically the justice system in New York City, as if it was not already stacked against the Jews, will be stacked against Jews in the event of any attack on Jews. Basically, open season, pogroms. My friends, that's the first thought I had when I heard that this Mamdani guy was nominated, won the nomination. My brain, I don't know about anybody else, guys, my brain immediately went back to the Lemrick Nelson, Yankel Rosenbaum incident. Where essentially, if it wasn't for the Rebbe, it would be open season on Jews. So my friends, today, we don't have the Rebbe. We don't have a Rebbe, we don't have the Rebbe. We don't have anybody. We don't have anybody but each other. And as you guys can see, a lot of the people with Jewish last names who are, let's say, not Orthodox, like voting a certain way. They like voting for, apparently, their own demise. They don't maybe realize it, but that's what they're voting for. And I can tell you guys, you know this. Everybody watching this knows this. When somebody wants to attack a Jew, they don't care if he's Orthodox or secular. They don't care if he's. They don't care if that Jew is like lefty or righty, right wing. They just care that it's a Jew. So, my friends, and even if Curtis Sliwa loses the election, and he wants to resurrect his, the guardian angels to patrol the streets, guys. I mean, I honestly, I don't think that's going to help us. I really don't. So the question is, guys, what are we going to do about all this? Well, again, that's what I've been saying for the longest time. If you're intent on staying in New York and you are not going to defend yourself, and in New York City it's not that easy because you know of all the laws against firearms, then you should not be staying in New York. If this guy were to be elected. Or we got to figure out a way how to come out in droves and vote. I can't vote personally in this election because I'm a resident of Jersey, North Jersey, right? But I spend a lot of time in New York. I used to work in New York. I went to college in New York. I used to work on Wall Street. I went to Baruch College. I'm a New Yorker, guys. I'm just technically I cannot, I'm not zoned to vote in New York. Let's put it that way, in New York City. But it would be a crying shame, folks. Despite the fact that I made a whole video talking about the regression that I've witnessed over the years, it still would be a crying shame if things devolved into Yankel Rosenbaum territory, Lemrick Nelson territory. It would be a shame. And if it devolves into that territory, it's not going to be just a one-off. And then that's when things, as we say, get kinetic. So, guys, that's a question. What are we going to do about this? What's the recourse? Well, we still have recourse because later on we will not. All right, guys. Shabbat shalom.